Hi friends, it's Mr. Barker. I thought I'd make a short video more geared toward parents right now and kind of describe some ways you can help your kids with counting. Now counting is one of those things that I think most of us don't really think that much about. I don't remember learning to count, I just know how to count. Um, and I know I didn't really think that much about it until I became an early childhood teacher. Um, there are actually three components to counting, and you don't really master counting until you have those three components. So those three components are sequence, one-to-one correspondence, and cardinality. So let's start with sequence. That's like the one that I think most of us think of when we think of counting. That just means that the numbers come in a fixed order and it never changes. It always goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. The second one I mentioned is one-to-one correspondence. That means each object only gets counted once. One number for each object. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. You'll know sometimes when students don't quite have one-to-one correspondence, their finger will go at a different speed than they're saying the words. They'll double tap on something. 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of mistakes people can make. And obviously the sequence mistakes, those are pretty easy to spot because students will just say the numbers in a different order or skip a number. The third thing is cardinality. And cardinality is the concept that the last number you say represents the whole set. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. There are 5 objects here. This little thing I do with my hands, that's something I do with my students too. Just to kind of help them with cardinality, to represent that finality. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. The last number I said represents the whole set. There are 5 blocks here in front of me. So the best thing to help with sequencing is literally just to count as much as you possibly can. Just count all the time. Count steps to the bathroom. Count jumping jacks if you're doing some exercise at home. Count blue cars that go by. The more they hear the sequence, the more they just memorize it. So that really is just, the more you count, the more you hear that sequence of numbers over and over again, the more it just gets ingrained in your head. With one-to-one correspondence, a lot of times students just have to slow down a little bit. So sometimes the blocks will all be in a jumble and they'll lose track. It's kind of hard. And so you might suggest, oh, what if you put them in a line? Would that make it easier? 1, 2, 3. Or, so you don't lose track, what if you slid them over? 1, 2, 3. Or what if you dropped them into a bucket or a barrel or something like that? That can kind of really help with one-to-one correspondence. And with cardinality, like I said, I think just using some kind of like physical hand gesture. 5. There are 5 things here. And I think the great thing about counting is it doesn't necessarily need to be a whole lesson. We're going to work on counting right now. It can just be kind of fun, and you can just do it all over the place. Just going on a walk, how many steps to the tree, doing exercises. You can ask them to make a set. Could you go get me 7 forks? We're setting the table for dinner. Or say, oh, how many rocks are there in that pile? And one really great thing is just to challenge them to go to higher and higher numbers, especially those numbers that come after 10. They don't really fit the same pattern, 11, 12, 13. The words are just a little bit different. You know, once you get into the 20s, it just follows the pattern, 21, 22, 23. And you get to the 30s, it goes again, 31, 32, 33. That's really much easier once you can get up to 20. It's those other numbers in the teens that are a little bit tricky. So those are some really main things. The last thing I would say with math, and almost like anything, honestly, is to ask them, how do you know? There's 5 here. How do you know? That's justification. Having them justify, how do they know that's 5? Oh, you counted? Okay, great. Yeah, that's a strategy. Versus, how many blocks are there? There's 2. How do you know? There's 2. Oh, did you subitize? Did you just see there are 2? So subitizing is when you just see, oh, there are 2 blocks here. You don't actually have to count them. And that can work with any science thing, anything, math, science. The more you can ask, how do you know? That causes students to think, how do I know that? That helps with like their metacognition, thinking about thinking. And yeah, it's a very useful thing. It'll really help them as they progress in math beyond counting to a lot of other things. I hope this helps, and thank you so much for helping your students keep these skills and build on them. Bye-bye.